I'll wait until I can see them better," he mumbled softly to himself. Leaning forward, he peered into the forest, holding his rectangular hand next to his face to shield his eyes from the light of the square sun. One of the creatures stepped into the clearing. There was a flash of brilliant light that momentarily blinded the young boy. "What was that?" Watcher extending his body farther over the edge of the tower. "Maybe it was a wizard, like the ones described in our history books." His imagination instantly went to the NPC wizards that existed hundreds of years ago in these far lands. In school, they'd been learning about the history of the far lands and the strange things that existed long ago. Not only NPC wizards, but also monster warlocks and terrifying creatures. A great war had ravaged the land long ago, wiping these monsters, warlocks, and wizards from the face of Minecraft, and now they only existed in these historical tomes. All that remained of those ancient times were the elaborate structures sprinkled across the deserts and forests, and occasionally enchanted relics found in dark caves or hidden chests. That was where Watcher's imagination went. Anything that pulled him from his miserable, mundane life was a welcome relief. "But it can't be a wizard," he thought. "That's ridiculous." And then he saw the figure clearly. It was one of the village warriors, returning from the evening patrol. More of the warriors emerged from behind trees and bushes, their iron armor reflecting the sun's rays like highly polished mirrors. The NPCs looked as if they were made of light. As the soldiers neared the village, many of them sheathed their heavy broadswords and tucked their shields back into their inventories. "Anything to report?" a voice asked from behind. Watcher turned and found Tiller climbing up through the trap door that was set into the roof of the tower. "No, nothing," Watcher replied, glad he didn't signal a false alarm. He would have been embarrassed if he'd said they were wizards in the forest. The last time he'd imagined something and reported it, Watcher had been bitterly teased by the older kids in the village, calling him Dreamer instead of Watcher for weeks. They had picked on him relentlessly, making the young boy feel unwelcome everywhere, which was nothing new. The only person that had stood by his side was his best friend, Planter. The thought of her made him turn toward the fields, and there she was. Watcher smiled. Planter was heading into the fields with a hoe over her shoulders, her beautiful blonde hair shining bright against the dark green smock, a yellow stripe running down the center. The long flowing strands swished back and forth as she walked, a cheerful spring always present in her gait. Tiller said something, but Watcher didn't hear. He was lost, gazing at Planter in peaceful delight. "What?" Watcher asked. He turned and faced Tiller. "I said your shift is done. I'll take over." Tiller said, "You've been up all night, and maybe you should get a little sleep before classes start." "I'm not going to school today." Watcher stepped to the trap door and stood on the first rung of the ladder. "Tryouts for the Army cadets are today." "Oh, no, you aren't trying out again, are you?" Watcher nodded. "Don't you remember what happened last time?" Tiller asked, a look of sympathy in his dark eyes. He could never forget. It had been the most humiliating day in his life. Watcher wasn't the biggest or strongest kid in the village. In fact, he was the opposite. He was the smallest and weakest. But what he lacked in physical prowess, he made up for with a fast mind and a clever wit. And this time, Watcher had a new idea, a clever strategy that would allow him to pass the tests and become a cadet in the Army. "I have a plan this time." Watcher's eyes grew bright with confidence. "I've been analyzing the way all the soldiers fight. They each have a pattern that's predictable. I can take advantage of that pattern to score some hits before I get annihilated." He took a huge breath and stuck out his scrawny chest. "It'll be different this time." "I hope so for your sake," Tiller said. "Well, I guess if you're going to do this to yourself again, good luck." "Thanks." Watcher grinned, then slid down the ladder. When he reached the ground floor, he shot out of the cobblestone structure, excited about the upcoming test. The young boy thought about going to see Planter and telling her what he was doing, but she was on the other side of the village. He couldn't see her and get back in time. Just thinking about his friend put a smile on Watcher's face. "Oh well," he said in a low voice. "I guess it's time to do this." Turning away from the fields, he headed for the